It's been a really full couple of days, to say the very least. There's a million words we could use to describe today, but I wanted to hear from the two of you today before you left to grace us with your thoughts of what you're feeling to begin with before we get to, takeaways.
Okay, so I'll start. I think the word that I would use leaving this conference would be rejuvenated. Like, I feel like, I know there were like really deep and heavy conversations that I had with pretty much, like with a lot of people. But I do feel rejuvenated, and I feel like I'm ready to kind of start again. When I go back, to be honest, when I was coming here, I was telling a few people that I spoke with that my sister is like, I know you love the space that you work in. It's good. Your work is supportive. DCA, Diversity Council Australia, is really good to work with, but I feel like you can't do this for too long. Like, it's emotionally, the emotional labor is too much. So by the time I got here, I was like, I'm over a lot of things. But I do feel rejuvenated after having the conversations, listening to what people are doing to hold, the work that they're doing, the advocacy work, the activist work that people are doing in various spaces, and the changes that they make. That change is coming. Where I had these conversations, all my conferences that I went to were overseas. And I could have these discussions, but they were overseas. And so to have them in Australia is really, I feel like even in my lifetime as a migrant in Australia, that change, I can see that change. I also feel very encouraged that, our counter narratives will one day be the dominant narrative. So the dominant narrative of race in Australia will cease to be the white majoritarian narrative. And I think we just need to have a few more of these kind of conferences where we share ideas and progress our thinking as well. So yeah, I feel rejuvenated and encouraged. And I like the fact that we weren't too scared to go to race. I was talking to some people here as well. I just wish like some of my colleagues and friends who are so-called allies could actually come into these spaces and hear how different the narrative is in these spaces, because often when you're there, white adjusting is a real thing. I know I said earlier that I don't white adjust anymore, but you still do it, right? Like, you still have to think, well, I really want to say, this act is racist. I could say that here, and I wish like we could create these, people are calling these kind of spaces third spaces, where you create those, racially and psychologically safe spaces for yourselves as people who are historically marginalized groups. So I just wish sometimes, people could be little flies in the wind on the walls and could hear how we speak about our truth in these spaces as well.
Thank you, Doctor. They will. Bill, what are you feeling?
I agree with everything what the doctor has said, because I have a plane to catch. No, I think at the end of the day, it's about, I think I said it earlier along, like I think, we do a bit of this in our own community. We meet for, on education or health conferences, and the feeling's the same, you know what I mean? And that's what the takeaway is that we're all talking about the same issues. We come from it from different walks of life, you know what I mean? Different modes of getting here. But I think at the end of the day, you can't take away the fact that when mobs come together and talking about stuff that our own lived experiences around some really, really powerful, really, really important topics, for all shades of whatever, you know what I mean, all experiences. It's nourishment for the soul, you know what I mean? And I can live my authentic self in this space. And I think that's really important. For me, the takeaway is, we're all talking about similar issues, but we come from it from a different perspective. Also, I just want to say, I think one of the questions early on, one of the speakers, or one of the questions that came from somebody in the attendees about, well, what do you do, when you're feeling run down or worn out or whatever. And I think at the end of the day, I don't have a choice. I think because I'm talking about the lives and the future of my children and my grandchildren and things like that, and I was saying to brother boy up there, far and about, I'll hold you up if you hold me up, you know what I mean? That's what it's about. It's about, we don't have a choice. I can go back to my home or whatever it is and live a very middle class sort of bourgeois life. But that's a disservice to my ancestors, and that's a disservice to the movement. So at the end of the day, the storytelling that I tell, or that we tell, do it with caution, because it is a burden at times, but don't be afraid to tell it. And, I'm excited. I go away today, I'm excited, I'm fired up again, you know what I mean?
What's the saying that we've come up with for this?
The movement. I always say the movement's in good order, the movement's doing fine. The movement's in great shape, and it is. Yeah. It's the movement. And I want to see other mobs, you know what I mean? I want to see my African sisters here, I want to see our mobs all get on the same page, and it's the movement. It's about being on the side of right, you know what I mean? And that's what I believe.
Thank you, Phil. I'll briefly share one of my favourite moments before I ask you some of your key learnings and takeaways. It was last night at dinner. It was ad hoc, last minute. We didn't even know we were going to meet up. I just called Dr. Virginia to see, what are you doing for dinner? You sort of, she's like, oh yeah, I'm just out with some friends and we're having a bite to eat. I'm like, great, I'll call Phil, I'll grab Khalees, and Sophie and I'll go down. And it was this vibrant, full, vivid conversation, like at full volume. And it was just so exciting to be a part of that, as it was. But then there was a moment, as Phil was sitting in between Sophie and I at the table, and you didn't even say anything. You just put one hand on my shoulder and one hand on Sophie's shoulder, and you just gave me just a nod and a look, and it was just that moment where you told me that you were happy with what was going on. That was the absolute best moment for me for the last couple of days. Thank you, Phil. That meant everything. Thank you. That meant everything to me.
It's a beautiful feeling when you, what I take away, what I just loved that last night was there were other people I'd never met before, and I was in a space and I was listening to the experiences of our sisters from Vietnam, Africa, talking about the system and what it had done. I was sitting between you and Sophie, and we were sharing food. And I said to you, I'm going to come back. When I said I'm going to come out because I want to keep drinking from the coffee cup that's flowing. And I think it's a beautiful thing that we don't have to hide. We don't have to edit ourselves.
Thank you. Before you need to jet off to the airport, Phil, I was going to ask both of you, what are some of the takeaways you're taking with you that you'd like to share and emphasize with the friends?
I think for me as well, one of the key takeaways from this conference is kind of the significance of race. And I know people, like I always say, people, they get tired from listening to me talk about race this, race that. But I kind of say race and racism in Australia, it's so pervasive, it's in everything that we do. And I think this conference has really shown me that. So for me, just the significance of race, or the significance of putting on a racial or a race lens to all things across anything, whatever we're talking about in Australian society, because race inequities are real, and we really do need to talk about them. So for me, that's the important thing. So this wasn't a conference on race necessarily. Mm-hmm. And yet, to me, it was the thread that came through everything that we talked about, that we did at this conference. So, the significance of race and casting a race lens of things is something that I'm taking with me. Another key takeaway, and I know I've said this word like a gazillion times, and I'll say it again. The significance of the counter narrative. Because otherwise, our story is always being told, for us. And even if we don't get often given the microphones, I always say to people, people that say, oh, I like this because I gave, I like working with people of color, or people from cult communities, and I like giving voice to people. And I'm like, you just lost me because nobody gives me a voice. I have a voice. I just need.
Thank you.
I just need the microphone so that everybody hears what I'm saying, and I need the platform, and I need the speaking position. I don't need a voice. Everybody has a voice, right? And I feel like we had the microphones this past couple of days, so just that counter narrative to be told out there. I know that there's going to be things that you'll post online and do all of this stuff. So it's not just stopping here. That counter narrative is getting out there, and I think that's really important. So I think to me those were and also kind of like, again, the significance of the third space. Like just that solidarity, that's racial safety, that psychological safety of spaces like this is also very, very important, and that's what rejuvenates people like me. So that's what I'm taking away. And the friendships.
Thank
Met
you.
so many cool people. So
Thank you.
The takeaways. I was just thinking, I talk about my mum a lot, and I've been thinking about her a lot, and I would wonder what my mum would be thinking about the things that I've done with my life over the last few years. Mindful that she spent the first 11 years of her life growing up in a tin shed in a place called Kingston, and she was a very fierce matriarch, and she was a strong woman. I remember in grade 3, Mr. Gregory at North Gambier Primary School called me Kunta Kinte. I didn't know anything about that. Alex Haley's book Roots about the young slave boy. I didn't know who he was or what that was, what this name was, and I went home and told Mum, and I still remember Mum dragging me up the corridor with my hand held so tight, and just the strength that she showed me about don't let people stick up for yourself and things like that. And she proceeded to tear strips off the principal, Mr. Connell, and I just thought, yeah, go Mum, And my mum was a very much the way I see the world is heavily through her eyes. I don't get caught up on the words and things like that. It's about the doing. And, it's easy to talk about different things, but it's about doing what you're doing in your space, your own spheres of influence. So my takeaway from it all, like this, I've learnt so much in the short space of time, and I'm excited that I'll get on the plane and I'm richer for this experience. And I've learnt some things about, the experiences of my brothers and sisters from other communities, and I want to see our communities work together, and I want to be that sort of vessel to sort of bring other mobs in, only because self-serving reasons. I'm tired of eating, bush food, and I want to eat some other sort of, I want to eat some more curries and some other things from other cultures. I do love that. But all jokes aside, it's important. We're talking about the same perpetrator here. We're talking about the same system, and I think it's common sense that we all get on the same page and share and things like that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I say that I'm really excited about the future. The voice, get out there in your communities and support the voice and, get behind it. I think it's very worthwhile, but also too, this is our country, and I want to be that space. This is our country to talk about these types of things and become that force of change. The momentum's there. It's going to be hard, but don't be afraid. Just keep going and, get somebody to hold you up when you're tired and weary, and be careful of the story. Telling stories is hard work. And also listening to the hard stories is hard work as well, but they have to be told.
Thank you, Phil. That's 4:25 now. You want to jet off now to the airport because you don't want to get stuck in traffic and miss your flight. So can we give Phil a round of applause, please, as he runs off the stage? Thank you, Phil.
Drive safe, Farron.
Safe flight. We've got a few more minutes until we're going to ask for some of your reflections as well, and Stacey's going to facilitate that. So allow him to say some goodbyes. How about what next? what are you going to do next? Or what would you like others to do next?
That's a big question and a bit hard. I guess it's just back to the same old, really. I guess the first port of call is I'm going to make sure everybody in my organization knows about this conference. So we support this conference in future.
Thank you.
I think it's a cause that's worthwhile having DCA's name on it, because we're supposed to be the peak body in diversity and inclusion in Australia. So that's what's next in terms of in relation to this conference.
Thank you. We got that on camera, guys. Thank you.
I'm going to be in trouble with my CEO. Anyway, and I guess in terms of what's next, yeah, it's really just continuing the anti-racism work that I do and taking some of the most amazing stories and, suggestions and places that I was referred to by a lot of you that I spoke to over the last couple of days. It's really putting into practice what we've been talking about in the last couple of days, really. It's doing, like my brother was talking about, it's now actually doing the work is what we need to do. And hopefully staying in touch with all of you whose details I got and creating some community of support that continues beyond just today. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It's a bit of a thinned out crowd for the afternoon. It's been a big couple of days, so I wanted to also acknowledge everyone who's still here as well, for still being here on the Tuesday afternoon of this massive 2 days. There will be a lot for each one of us to unpack, regardless of our experience of race and racism, and whether we've had things reaffirmed or things, complete blind spots opened up to it. There's going to be a lot of unpacking and emotional homework to do after this as well. So I just want to acknowledge that, your resilience to share stories, to be a part of the conversation, to be brave, and to listen intently, and to take on unfiltered, largely unfiltered, because it's still being recorded, so we're still adjusting to a degree. But it was pretty much unfiltered, and this is truth. And sometimes, truth needs to be spoken before we can talk about justice and unity and peace and prosperity, as I said in the opening keynote. So if the truth unsettles us, then that tells us something about us and our relationship with the truth. So that's something that I usually start with in my training sessions, is let's talk about the feelings that can come up for us in a conversation about race, first and foremost, and then let's unpack why am I feeling this feeling, and that tells us a lot about our relationship with race and the dynamics. I would like to also add with what next is, definitely do reach out to people you've met briefly or momentarily or had long conversations with. Me particularly, anyone, LinkedIn, email, Facebook, website, whatever. I think part of the strength of what we're trying to create with Newkind, always has been, is to create a stronger ecosystem of change. Like we've discussed, the collectivist, individualist kind of cultures and worldviews. We require a collectivist worldview because that's our strength. That's where many of our cultural backgrounds actually come from as well. So let's make that our superpower and understand that no single individual or single organization or only the big organizations can do the work that needs to be done. We actually need to empower the ecosystem so we can all survive in our spaces and either feel safe at work or feel safe enough to be able to do our own entrepreneurial type stuff, and understand that the work is there and we're not competing against each other for the work, because no single one of us can actually do all the work. So keep that in mind. The ecosystem, how are we supporting the ecosystem so that the ecosystem can support us? Because oftentimes we're taught to just take from the ecosystem, but how do we support the ecosystem around us? How can I share work? How can I share platforms, create platforms, that sort of stuff? Because that's where our true strength lies. Final thoughts, Dr. Virginia, before we hand over to Stacey to hear from the audience.
I don't know that I've got anything else to add to what I've said already. I don't know. Final thoughts is my email is virginia@dca.org.au. So it's out there if you need to reach out, or if you're in Sydney, if you want to catch up for coffee or whatever, and support each other in the work that we do. So yeah, I'm not very good at responding immediately to emails. Erfan knows this already.
Fine.
But I will respond. So that's my email address. Reach out if you want to.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to invite, thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to invite Stacey up now to facilitate the next session, and I will thank the sponsors again at the end, but I just thought it's worthwhile noticing Stacey is from One Red Step, one of our event partners. Many of you already know her and the great work that Stacey does. So can you please give a big round of applause for Stacey? I'll give you this mic.
Are you staying with me?
No,
all
all yours.
Hi, everyone. For those of you that I haven't met, my name's Stacey Ong. I am a Malaysian Chinese woman. And I'm on this stolen, unceded land. And I'd like to acknowledge my mum, shout outs to everyone's mum who have brought us here today, and my ancestors who come from China. I think that's really important. So Erfan's given me the hardest job of the day, which is it's 4:30 on the Tuesday and the second day. And I'm going to invite you all after the last 2 amazing, amazing days, just to take a deep breath and close your eyes and settle into your body. And feel into your body and where it's sitting right now. How do your feet feel? How does your back feel? How's your face feel? Notice any sensations in your body with kindness and compassion. And when you're ready, I invite you to come back to the space that we're in. And we will reflect on the last 2 days. I was sitting next to Needy earlier, and what was really nice is I said, "Hey, can I sit down next to you?" And she's like, "Of course," because it feels like family now after spending these 2 days together. And Erfan said in his opening, we have loose molecular connections, something along those lines, and now those connections have tightened. And I think this is the magic of Newkind and the magic of the space that Erfan and Sophie curate, that we feel so safe, that it feels like family. So I'm going to invite you to turn to the family member next to you. And if you aren't sitting next to somebody, find the closest person and just debrief, how are you feeling in your body right now? What's going on for you? And for me, this is a combination of both inspiration and tiredness as well, and a feeling that there's a lot to do. So I'm going to give you a few moments to speak to your family member, your brother or your sister beside you, and have a conversation. And then I'll bring you back in 5 minutes. All right, everyone. We have some roving mics, I think, roving around. Who wants to share about how you're feeling? How are you feeling after these 2 days? Do we have mics running around at all? Or do you want to just...
Who wants it first?
Who wants to go first and talk about how they feel? How they're feeling after these 2 days?
Hi everyone. We had a discussion here and we, well, first of all, grateful for the event organisers for putting on a space for all of us to feel safe, to be able to hear what we've been feeling in our embodied, you know, I loved your embodiment exercise of what we've embodied throughout our whole lives, to hear it reflected back on a stage, on a platform, was very healing. So lovely to meet with friends old and new. Looking forward to keeping contact with people. And we both really feel a sense of hope and optimism. There's such an enormous intellect, energy and passion of so many different groups of people doing amazing work in these huge topics, which we're finding, you know, it's like a big meal, hard to digest all in one go. But we'll take away a small takeaway for ourselves and just keep going and keep staying connected and looking forward to next year.
Thank you. Shout out to Judith.
Hello. Thank you. I've been kind of trying to fly under the radar. My name's Juju. I have been working with Sophie and Erfan for the last couple months as doing work on branding, design, marketing, visual communications, where I'm at. It's my jam. I actually left where I was working because of the inequalities and injustices, and I've always kind of felt it growing up in a white Australia, but I couldn't really pinpoint what it was, and it was, I guess, a couple months ago that I actually got the strength to actually address some of the problems that I saw in my organisation. And decided to leave, and now I'm, you know, freelancing, helping Sophie and Erfan, and I'm hoping to, you know, with my work, I help elevate businesses and brands and try and spread their message through their marketing. So now I'm on this trajectory of I'm only going to be doing that for businesses that align with my values and are on the same course. So, yeah. I know there's a lot of cool people out here doing really cool things. So if you need any help, yeah, you know where to find me. Yeah.
We will definitely be calling you, Juju, and I can't wait to hang out and work with you. Does anyone else want to share?
I'll quickly share. I'm feeling really fired up and excited. All the speeches are so inspiring. I've never had much success with my activism until I got contacted by a prisoner illegally detained in Indonesia about a week ago, and suddenly we raised all this money, and I've been working with the Ukraine embassy as well. And just to, even though these particular issues I haven't worked with, fundraising, gender-based violence and more cultural violence, it's given me all this inspiration to help out on these issues that I haven't tried to fundraise for and that I haven't really got involved with. So I was at the last one as well. So thank you, Erfan, so much for creating these spaces where the words are spoken in a way that no one's heard as much truth and as much free speech and free thinking. So thank you, Erfan.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Nusrat Miraji. I'm a barrister and I've just recently arrived in Melbourne 2 months ago. And thank you. And so I am a fresh immigrant. And starting from how I ended up here at Newkind to how I basically got the tickets to be here, to being here the last 2 days, it's been an absolutely surreal experience, especially because as a person of color, since I've landed in Melbourne, I have received so much warmth. I've met some of the most amazing people here. And even then, I still felt a bit out of place. Not a bit, actually, I'll just be honest, it's a safe space, right? I felt a lot out of place. And at one point, because I couldn't find anyone to relate to, I couldn't find any space where to have these conversations, I just started internalizing it. And in a sense, just telling myself, you know what, it's gonna pass, it's fine. Probably making a big deal in my head. And then I came here yesterday and then today, and I'm like, no, it was almost like I was gaslighting myself, to be honest. So, and it's just been absolutely profound to be here. Thank you so much for the work that you do, because I honestly, I'm leaving with a sense of empowerment like I haven't felt since I arrived here. It's honestly, shout out to everybody who moves countries, and it's just it's not smooth. The transition can be very challenging, and especially as a person of color. And to have the space and to have made the connections that I have in the last 2 days, and the friends and the networks, organizations, I will be forever grateful. I will absolutely be forever grateful for this opportunity, and definitely going to pay this forward. Shout out to Tasneem, who's the reason why I'm here. She's at the back. Tasneem Chopra. We actually met physically for the first time yesterday. I just knew her through Instagram and just randomly messaged her, and then she randomly messaged me back, and now here I am talking to all of you. So that's how I believe we move forward. So I'm definitely going to be paying this forward as well to someone one day who needs it, inshallah. And till then, just thank you. Thank you for creating this space. So grateful for all of you. And thank you just for making this space.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Faize Parks. I from Children See, Children Do. I just wanted to say that I'm grateful for Newkind Enterprise. I'm grateful for Sophie, the beloved wife of this gentleman, Erfan, who has, they have worked very hard to make this happen for you guys. And what would be lovely is if we all contacted them and offered our services to help it become a better one next year and the next. So my request is let's step up and let's do it with joy. Say, hey, guys, we're here. We can offer such and such as this lovely young lady who offered her services, and such as One Step, Red Step, and everyone else, Just Gold, everyone who supported. Let's do our little. We might not be a brand name, but we can all put our hand up and say, we'll help you guys. We will make it even better each year with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe, can I ask, sorry, did you want to tell your story? Maybe I'll let you tell your story, and then I want to ask one final question to kind of close us and start us wrapping up, if it's okay. Go for it.
Can I have 10 seconds while she walks?
Oh, please go for it.
So I've been not working for a huge amount of time, but I've never been in a room of such inspiring people that has, brought so many things to the table, and new ideas and new ways of thinking. And, there's so much to do, but it's so exciting that we, I don't know if in my lifetime or the next lifetime, but we're moving in that right direction. And I've never been in a room of such diverse people who are here for the same cause and to make the world a better place. And it's so exciting. So thank you so much.
Oh, I love that. Oh, Khalees wants to say something. Come on up. Perfect, we've got a microphone. And can I just add to that and say, well, that was mine and Joanne, shout out to the amazing Joanne who I work with at One Red Step. That was our experience last year, that we came last year and we loved it so much and loved the space that was created, that we have tried to support and tried to work and support the work of Newkind. I'm going to hand over to Khalees to say something. Fantastic.
Oops, sorry. Hi, guys. My name is Khalees, and I am a fourth-year Duke student from the United States. And I met a lot of you like over this past few weeks, but I wanted to introduce myself for those who haven't met me. And I found out about the Newkind conference through Erfan's LinkedIn page. And after searching LinkedIn for topics that had interested me, but I had never really had the opportunity to discuss before. And so immediately as I clicked on the Newkind website, I just knew that I was gonna go to this conference, even though it was in Australia. And so the journey to getting here was part dedication, part serendipity, and it all unfolded about a week before the Newkind start date. And so as I made my way to Australia, I was asked a couple of times, what brought me here, and how many other people from your school are coming, or a general sense of you came all the way here for this, that's it, And it did give me a little bit of pause in my decision making at first, but that was really, the fact that I came was really clear after I heard Erfan's introductory speech, as a lot of people have mentioned. And yeah, that speech was really incredible for me. It really explained the outlook on life that I had been developing in the US in better words than I could have managed. And I hope that one day we can all think of the world as connected and see the need for unity and togetherness as the answer to our ailments. And also, FYI, Erfan, I'm going to be sharing your introductory speech to all my friends so that we can spread that message. But yeah, and people have mentioned today, the weak molecular bond that kind of brought us all together. Having been here for 2 days, I couldn't agree more that it was definitely a part of my destiny, that I was meant to come here. Halfway through day one, we were already having conversations about the relationship between power and community and using your privilege to stand up for humanity. And these are conversations that I have never had before and were really enriching and just impactful on my life. And so being able to connect with all of you and talk about our outlooks, stories, philosophies has really been rewarding for me. So there's one thing about the speech and our conversations that I think we've touched on today, and that is it can definitely be upsetting and troubling to think about the fact that we're not operating at our full human potential. But I think rather than just being troubling, it shows what we've discussed, shows that we can really approach this with hope and excitement. Because we're putting energy towards these topics now, just imagine how beautiful and rich and full of possibilities the world has to become once we shift our attentions elsewhere, and once we're able to shift our attentions elsewhere because we are doing all of this work now. And so I feel my story can kind of be a testament to if you believe it, you can achieve it. Because we've heard about all the systems that need fixing, and now we have the opportunity to dream and imagine what a new kind of world could look like. And abundance is available to all of us. It's really just about going out there and fighting for it. So I hope that you can fill your heart with happiness as you think about the future of a positive and fulfilling world where we all thrive. And I'd also like to take this time to just thank the people and departments at Duke University that allowed me to be here today. And so that's the Sanford School of Public Policy, the Office of Sustainability, Dr. Bokhar Ba in the Department of Economics, Dr. William Darity at the Samuel Du Bois Cook Society for Social Equity, and Dean Blackshear, the Dean of Students for Duke University. And I'd also like to thank Erfan and Sophie for sponsoring me here as well. And without you guys' support, I would not have been able to get here for sure. And I'd also like to thank all of you for being such great companions on this journey. Also, shameless plug, I am circulating a survey that's meant to be taken by practitioners, community members, and experts who are directly impacted by social movements. So that's definitely all of you guys. So survey coming out, and it's about economic issues and basically to find your views on corporations that interact with social issues. So that will be hitting the email soon, but to conclude, I think there's one thing that I know for certain, and that's as we move toward a sustainable society, the world will blossom. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Khalees. How good was that? I had no idea that that was how you got here, Khalees. That is amazing. What an amazing story. Okay, last few minutes, I just want to say a couple of things. Obviously, thank you. Thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you for listening to that voice that said, what is this Newkind thing about? I should go. Or the other girl that I met before that's been coming since 2019. Thank you for being here. Thank you to Erfan, Sophie, all of the tech guys, Farhan, Joe, Juju, Hala, all of the people who are on panels. All of that energy and presence that everyone has given us has contributed to the 2 days and those tighter molecular bonds. In the last 5 minutes, I might ask us to think about and consider what stories we want to tell now. What stories, new stories are we creating? Because in Newkind, it's there's a lot of information and it is fantastic, but it's, well, what stories are we leaving here with? What stories do we want to create? Because that is part of the imagining of a new kind of world. So I'll ask you just to maybe have a 1 minute, 2 minute talk to the person next to you about what kind of story you want to tell and create, and then we'll quickly debrief and then wrap up. Okay, so just all okay. right, how are we going? How are you all doing? Do we have some new stories that we want to tell? Or some old stories that haven't been heard before? I know for myself, I don't think my mum's story has been told. You know, what was it like for her, and what does it continue to be like for her? So I'm really keen to hear from you. What are some of the stories that you will want to create, want to tell, want to share, coming out of Newkind that have inspired you? Roving Mike, yeah, over there. Is it working? It's on. Perfect.
The stories I want to hear are stories that are out of the white lens. I want to hear more stories and languages of our culture, of our people, of our food. And I want to connect with people outside of, colonization. And I really want decolonization to be something that we carry throughout everything that we do. I think earlier someone talked about whitewashing, and I definitely was whitewashed. I come from a country that was colonized by the British. My entire identity is based on British colonialism. I'm speaking a colonizer's language, and I want to continue embracing all the different languages that my ancestors have taught me and continue embracing that. So I encourage everyone here to take ownership of your culture and your ancestors and listen to the stories of your families, because that's so powerful.
Yeah, thank you, Needy. Thank you.
Hi. I don't have that many. I think mine's very much the same. I want stories of unification, stories of family. I think ethnically we are all so similar in so many ways. We all have Asian parenting stories. We all have stories of being told that we've been whitewashed. We have hilarious stories that join us together. I know that I walk into a room and I usually see a brown or an Asian person at a party and I'm like, hey. So just continue to share those stories about how you had smelly lunch boxes and how your parents forced you to never wax your eyebrows, and like share your trauma, share your humor, and like, I guess, unite in all of our stories.
Thank you.
Hello. Yeah. I think I'm going to take away from here, I'm definitely taking away from here, is what I'm going to be telling are stories of empowerment, because I feel like the space that we created in the last 2 days, we didn't just talk about what the problems are, but we also we left everything, every session was left on a positive note. And I think that's so important that people go away, whether it's a race issue, whether it's a gender issue, whatever world crisis, global crisis we're going through. I feel like empowerment is what will eventually make the world go around and what does make the world go around. So I think definitely stories of empowerment. And also, I am ending this conference on a note personally, which is feeling an immense level of love for my culture, my family, especially yesterday's Invisible Woman. It was so powerful. I just sat there crying because I was thinking of my mother, I was thinking of my grandmother, and it's all their stories, you know, it's all their stories, like growing up and feeling that shame for them not being fluent in one language, or, you know, like thinking somehow, you know, that defines them, whereas there's so much more than that. Not containing anybody, I mean, in a box that's labeled, you know, like we're all limitless. And it's just, the last 2 days have just been a solid affirmation of that. So carrying that on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
So I'm Abe, for the people that I haven't had the pleasure to meet today or yesterday. So I came into this with the privilege, in inverted commas, of being white, male, having all the, and up until this morning, someone who used to think of myself as a proud ally in this space. And those that I've talked to in the last 6 hours since that early morning session, I'm feeling really uncomfortable about wearing that title ally. I don't even know if I should be wearing this scarf, but you know, I've got to be doing more active stuff. We've all got to be doing more active stuff. So I've got two thoughts, and I'll just do it in 2 minutes. I saw the movie, which I think many of you have referred to, not 2 nights ago here, but last week at the Immigration Museum, Ferguson Rises. And that taught me so much. If you haven't seen it, please go to see it. But the director was here, and the father of the boy that was killed was here, and I had the chance to be at a Q&A with them at the Immigration Museum. And I asked a question about being an ally in that space. And the director of Ferguson Rises gave me a 5-minute solid answer, which I'd like to share with everybody in 1 second, just the one key sentence. He said, if you want to be a really good ally, always remember how you're doing it and what's going on and what consequences you might be causing. And a few people, white people in the audience, were scratching their heads. Where was he going with this? And he went on to say, there were some people at some of the rallies to stand up for my son, this man's son, after he died, and the police started taking cannons and tear gas and stuff on other people at those rallies in Ferguson. But when they realised there were white people there, they did pause for a moment because they didn't want to hurt them in the killing back. But what you don't know, when the media went away and those white people were no longer standing next to the black person from Ferguson, they beat up the people that were next to them, or particularly took out, because whilst you were there, you were creating a safe space, but in the meantime, maybe they'd set you up, maybe you were a friend. For whatever reason, you've got to always remember that your allyship can create a challenge, a life and death situation if you're not careful for the people around you. And how many white allies think about that as they go about their allyship? So to me, the takeout and the story and the narrative that I would take from this would be, there are so many people that are not in this echo chamber that we're all in right now. They're not here because they've never heard of Newkind. They're not here because they have heard of it, but that's not their sort of thing. They're not here because they don't think about the sorts of issues that we're thinking about. So instead of being a pessimist, because I agree that it's nice to have a positive ending, what can we do with that fact, with that opportunity? Every conversation, people we meet, the more racist they are, the more bigoted they are, the more homophobic they are, all the more reason that we've got to use all of our privileges of everyone in this room to have one-to-one grassroots conversation, because I don't believe it's going to improve by the UN and the government leaders and the prime ministers talking to each other. Nah, that's not going to fix it. It's going to happen at this level of purity, of love, of connection, of grassroots. Thank you, Newkind, for reminding me of that.
Thank you. Asil.
Thank you. I just want to say that I would love if Newkind became more of a movement than a one-off event. And saying that, I think you are, like, you're looking around people in the room, people that we might meet in the street, people that you can see in the Hoover that still have no code for. Otherwise, you will always see hi from me. And kind of really don't assume that person next to you that you met here really have the right connections around them to make Newkind a movement. We are those people, and I think the more we connect and not assume, but say, hey, I would love to have people around me that really think the same. I would like together to have more conversations, more connections, more of this. The more it is bigger, the bigger and the fuller the place is, and the more people coming because they have heard it from those they love and they trust, not from social media. Like I came, even if like I asked Maria, I want a ticket, it's so expensive. Anyway, but it's kind of like, I came here accidentally and I'm so happy that I did. I just want everybody that come here to be purposely coming to this. And I think that's not on Erfan, that's on all of us. So I think we have to make the promise in the door, in our way out, that next year I'm bringing 5 different people that I think they should listen to what we have listened to.
Thank you, Asil.
Someone?
Is there any, okay. Yep, all right. Last one. and then we will say something. I just wanted to say there is the old adage that if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. And that is some of the things that I think we've been talking about, Asim.
Thank you. James here from City of Port Phillip. This is my first time actually attending the Newkind conference. I've never heard of it in previous years, so I realized that it has been around for like several years. And what I do pick up is that I really hope the dominant theme this year seems to be about race and gender. I hope that if we talk about true social justice, inclusion, diversity, whatever, it should also cut across other themes as well, which I believe which I heard from Jordan here had been discussed in previous conferences. What I do hope to see next year would really be other topics about, it could be about LGBTIQ, it could be about people living with disability, people living near the poverty line, homeless people, and how do we solve these issues as well. People, who have certain, I would say, some kind of a disability that does not allow them to participate in civic life as fully as, other able people, which I hope, some of these topics and themes would be explored in the next conference. But on that note, I agree with what Abe said earlier on about, I hope really there is, what I do notice that in a conference, it is very easy to get into some kind of echo chamber because we are meeting like-minded people. While it's great because it gives us affirmation, we know that we are in the company of like-minded people who think like us, and it's very easy for us to gain momentum. At the same time, it is also important for us to engage people who are different from us. Because if we want to talk about diversity, inclusion, equity, then I think we need to model that, which means we will need to engage people who are very different from us. And I do agree, I think it was the lady over there, sorry, I didn't get your name, who said that, yeah, next year we should get in other people. And for example, I would love to see more men in this room because they need to hear this so that they can effect those changes as well. Yeah, that's my point. Thank you.
Erfan, did you want to come up here and close? Erfan, everybody.
Thank you so much. She pulled that off brilliantly in the last minute. Thank you so much, Stacey. 5 minutes notice. I'll make it very brief. I haven't prepared a speech. I just wanted to start very quickly with thanking the people who made this possible. RMIT, our venue sponsor, the wonderful tech team who provided the audiovisual support. I need to thank Kyriakos up here. Please give him a round of applause. From Just Gold. Just Gold Digital Agency is our creative partner, and they've been filming everything. They're going to be cutting, topping and tailing all these video clips and putting them out there into the world. So these conversations will reverberate much further. So thank them. I would like to also thank Hala from the Institute of Nonviolence, who you've met yesterday on the panel, for her support over the last few months, moral support, weekly catch-ups on the phone, and yeah, for facilitating and curating the panel yesterday as well so perfectly. I'd like to also thank you, Stacey, again, and Joe from One Red Step, our other event partners. Joe's here, there you are. Thank you for your support as well. And I know everyone, rightfully so, has thanked Sophie for everything she's done, but I need to say it again overtly, that this conference was largely organized by Sophie. You need to know that. Like, the lion's share of the work is Sophie. The detail, the attention to detail, from flight times to booking of accommodations, to liaising with presenters, all of that stuff, Sophie's managed most of that. And I wanted to thank you, Soph, for making this possible. And I'd love to be able to not have to be as involved in the future as well. I mean, Newkind should definitely continue, but it doesn't have to be me here. So just keep that in mind, Soph, because I would like to eventually get back to what I mentioned the other day, which was writing poetry or growing potatoes or planting fruit trees. Sure, I might end with that. I don't want to be talking about race, as I mentioned, and most of us here don't want to have to be dealing with some of the issues we're dealing with like homelessness and gendered violence and race equity. There are other ambitions that I'm sure many of us had as children, as teenagers, up until our adulthood. Other things that, you know, are perhaps more fulfilling to our souls. But we feel a responsibility to our planet, to our community, to the sacrifices of our parents, whatever it might be, to the global ecosystem, to do something that is required of us rather than what it is that our heart's desire actually is. And that might just be what we need to do because of the unique and critical point in human history that we find ourselves in. And that in itself is another honor that we have, to be at that point where we, maybe generations or centuries down the track, they will be able to say that there was a couple of generations that shifted the trajectory of the planet, and we get to be alive and active in that particular time, which I find an absolute honor and blessing, and that's part of what keeps me going, is knowing how short our earthly life is, the fact that the earth has its own consciousness, and we are less than an ant within that larger motion, the movement, the momentum of this planet. So to be alive and to be to have agency and you know, to be able to contribute in any way, shape or form to that is a huge honor. That is what allows me to get up every morning. I know some of the issues we've been talking about, whether it's climate, human rights, health disparities, incarceration rates, economic justice, aren't the easiest things to talk about. But so I want to remind us that that's not the goal. Isn't to be fighting for the rest of our lives, and if we keep the goal in mind, then the work becomes better and more effective. And the goal eventually, as we have kind of mentioned a few times, is the unity, the peace and prosperity of the human family on this planet. And I know we think we're really advanced and intelligent and technologically developed and all the rest of it, but I feel that we have not even scratched the surface of human capacity and capability as far as what we can do creatively, artistically, technologically, the mysteries of the universe that we could still unravel, the mysteries of the soul that we could still learn about. There is so much that we don't even know that we don't know about once we address these basic core issues of housing, education, healthcare, and elimination of prejudice along the lines of race and gender and ability and sexuality, and just these really basic things that I feel should have been resolved maybe a few centuries ago. Imagine what we are possible of creating when we get that done, and we might not be able to partake in that glorious world, but our souls would have been a part of that process. And I think that's something I'd like to leave you with the hope and the joy that you need to keep you going until we next meet, is to just keep that in mind of how much of an honor and a blessing it is to be alive and to have consciousness and ability to be able to affect change in the world today. So with that, thank you. And I don't know if we've got time for a poem, to be honest. Not today. No. I won't indulge you, and I'm not going to take any. We have had an incredible time. I want to thank you all for being here right to the very last moment, and thank you everyone for being here. Stay in touch. Love you all. Talk to you soon.